Four astronauts, named Kevin, Maria, Alex, and Sarah, had been selected to test a new biodome ship that could travel at light speed. They were thrilled to be the first crew to test the ship and eagerly boarded it for their mission. Their mission was to travel to a nearby planet and conduct some experiments on its environment. They were all very excited as they entered the ship and started the countdown for the launch. As the countdown ended, the ship took off with a deafening roar, and the astronauts felt the intense acceleration as the ship reached light speed. For the first few minutes, everything seemed to be going smoothly. But suddenly, the ship started shaking violently, and the astronauts could hear strange noises coming from the ship's engines. They tried to radio mission control, but they were unable to establish contact. As the shaking intensified, they noticed that the ship's navigation system was malfunctioning, and they were no longer able to control the ship's direction. Suddenly, the ship jolted, and they found themselves outside of the universe, in a strange and unknown place. The astronauts were stunned and terrified as they gazed out of the ship's window. They saw a massive rainstorm of galaxies, and they were in the middle of it. The storm was like nothing they had ever seen before. It was a chaotic mix of colors and shapes, and they could hear the rumble of thunder echoing through space. The astronauts knew they had to act fast to save themselves and the ship. They tried to activate the ship's engines to steer it back to the universe, but the engines were damaged beyond repair. They were stranded and lost in the rainstorm. The crew tried to contact mission control again, but they could not get through. They realized that they were completely on their own and would have to find a way to survive in this unfamiliar and dangerous place. Kevin, the captain, took charge and started to assess their situation. They had to find a way to repair the ship and get back to the universe. Alex and Sarah worked on repairing the engines, while Maria tried to find a way to communicate with mission control. After several hours of hard work, they were able to repair the engines, and the ship started to move again. With Maria's help, they were able to establish contact with mission control, and they were given instructions on how to navigate back to the universe. Kevin felt a sense of dread wash over him as he realized that they were still stranded and had no idea where they were or how to get back home. He tried to radio mission control again, but all he heard was static. Suddenly, the ship started shaking violently, and the alarms grew louder. Kevin and the rest of the crew rushed to the control room, where they saw that the ship was being pulled towards a new galaxy. They tried to activate the engines, but it was too late. The ship crashed onto a nearby planet with a loud thud. The crew members were thrown around inside the ship, and they all lost consciousness. When Kevin woke up, he found himself lying on the ground outside the ship, surrounded by a strange and unfamiliar landscape. He got up and looked around, and he saw that the ship had crashed into a barren wasteland. The crew members slowly started to wake up, and they all looked around in shock and disbelief. They had crashed on a planet that was unlike any they had ever seen before. As they started to explore their new surroundings, they realized that something was different about this planet. They soon discovered that they were outside of time itself. Time did not exist on this planet, and they were stuck there indefinitely. The crew members were devastated. They had no way to contact mission control or to get back home. They were stranded on a planet where time did not exist, and they had no idea how to survive. Despite the odds, the crew members refused to give up. They knew that they had to find a way to survive on this planet and to find a way back home. They spent their days exploring the planet, gathering resources, and trying to repair the ship. Months turned into years, but they never lost hope. They continued to work tirelessly, driven by the hope that one day they would find a way back home. As the crew explored the planet, they discovered many unique and fascinating features. The landscape was dotted with towering crystalline structures that glimmered in the sunlight, and the sky was a brilliant shade of purple. They also found that the planet was home to many exotic creatures, some of which were unlike anything they had ever seen before. As they spent more time on the planet, the crew noticed that something was off. Despite the passage of time, they were not aging. At first, they thought it might have been a result of the lack of time on the planet, but the truth was even stranger. They soon discovered that the planet's atmosphere had unique properties that affected the aging process. They realized that they had been blessed with a form of immortality, and they would never grow old or die. The crew was stunned by this realization. They had been resigned to the fact that they would spend the rest of their lives on this planet, but now they faced the possibility of living forever. Some of the crew members were ecstatic about their newfound immortality, while others were horrified. They knew that their loved ones back on Earth would eventually age and die, and they would be forced to watch from afar. Despite the mixed reactions, the crew was determined to make the most of their situation. They continued to explore the planet and document its unique features, hoping that their findings would one day be shared with the rest of humanity. As time passed, the crew became more and more isolated from the rest of the universe. They were outside of time itself and were now immortal, cut off from the rest of the aging universe. Eventually, they realized that they would never be able to return to Earth. They had been gone for so long that their friends and families would be long gone. They had become stranded on this planet, a group of immortals living in isolation. Despite the challenges they faced, the crew remained committed to their mission. They continued to study the planet and its unique features, hoping to unlock the secrets of their immortality and find a way to share their discoveries with the rest of humanity. The crew members had come so far from their initial mission, and yet they still had so much to learn. They had discovered a new planet, become immortal, and faced the challenge of living in isolation. They were pioneers in their own right, and they knew that their legacy would live on long after they were gone. As the crew members continued to live on the planet, they discovered that they could still have children. The children they had were not immortal, unlike the crew members, and they realized that they could start a new civilization on the planet. Over the centuries, the crew members had many children, and as they grew up, they were released into the wild on their 15th birthdays to create their own cities and civilizations. The children inherited many of their parents' traits, including their intelligence, resilience, and curiosity. They explored the planet, learning about its unique features and discovering new ways to survive and thrive. As the years passed, the children grew up and had children of their own, who then went on to create their own cities and civilizations. The planet became a thriving hub of activity, with cities and towns popping up all over the landscape. Despite the vast distances between the cities, the different communities maintained a connection through a network of communication satellites that had been launched into orbit by the crew members. As the generations passed, the planet became a melting pot of different cultures, languages, and traditions. The children of the crew members had created a new society, one that was diverse, vibrant, and full of life. The crew members watched as their children and their children's children created a new civilization on the planet. They were proud of what they had accomplished and knew that their legacy would live on through the new civilization they had helped create. As the crew members continued to live on the planet, they were at peace with the knowledge that their legacy would continue through their children and the civilization they had created. The crew members knew that they had accomplished something truly remarkable. They had discovered a new planet, become immortal, and started a new civilization. They had left a lasting legacy that would continue for generations to come, a testament to their bravery, resilience, and determination. As the crew members went by time, they realized that their immortality was both a blessing and a curse. They had seen their children and grandchildren grow up and create a new civilization on the planet, but they had also what? Despite their age, the crew members remained committed to their mission. They knew that they had a responsibility to the new civilization they had helped create, and they were determined to find a way to help them continue to thrive. Over time, the crew members developed new technologies to aid the people on the planet. They created machines that could purify the air and water, and they built structures that could withstand even the most powerful storms. As the years passed, the crew members became revered by the people on the planet. They were seen as gods, beings of incredible power and knowledge who had brought them to this new world and helped them survive. However, as the generations passed, the people on the planet began to forget about the crew members. They had become myths, legends passed down from one generation to the next. Some people still believed in the crew members and their incredible powers, but they kept it to themselves, fearing that they would be seen as crazy or delusional. Others had completely forgotten about the crew members, focusing instead on their own lives and the new society they had created. The crew members watched as their legacy began to fade away. They had helped create a new civilization, but they had also become isolated from it. They had watched as their children and grandchildren grew up and had children of their own, creating a new society that no longer needed them. Despite their age and their isolation, the crew members remained committed to their mission. They continued to work on new technologies to aid the people on the planet, hoping to leave behind a legacy that would continue to help them thrive for centuries to come. The crew members knew that they had accomplished something truly remarkable. They had created a new civilization, helped them survive, and left behind a legacy that would be remembered for generations to come. While their immortality had isolated them from the world they had helped create, they were content knowing that they had done all they could to help it thrive. The news of the man who had found the ship and killed 2 of the original crew members spread quickly throughout the planet. The people were shocked and saddened by the news, but they were also fearful of what might come next. Kevin was particularly enraged by the man's actions. He had been one of the original crew members, and he felt a deep sense of responsibility for the people on the planet. He knew that he had to act quickly to protect them. Using the advanced technology he had developed over the years, Kevin waged war against the people of the planet. He created powerful weapons and defenses that allowed him to take control of entire cities and territories. At first, the people of the planet were taken by surprise. They had never seen anything like Kevin's weapons and defenses, and they were unable to mount an effective defense against them. However, as the war dragged on, the people began to resist. They organized themselves into small groups and used guerrilla tactics to attack Kevin's forces. They destroyed his weapons and defenses, and they began to take back their cities and territories. The war continued for many years, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Kevin's forces were powerful, but they were also stretched thin. The people of the planet were determined, and they were willing to fight to protect their homes and families. The war came to a stalemate. Kevin realized that he could not defeat the people of the planet, and he knew that he had made a terrible mistake in waging war against them. He used his technology to help the people rebuild their cities and territories, and he worked to heal the wounds that had been caused by the war. He apologized for his actions and promised to use his knowledge and resources to help the people of the planet in any way he could. Over time, Kevin became a trusted advisor to the leaders of the planet. He used his knowledge to help them create new technologies and solve the problems that threatened their society. He had been given a second chance to make a difference in the world, and he was determined to use it to help the people of the planet thrive. Despite the progress he had made in helping the people of the planet, Kevin was still haunted by the loss of his wife and friend. He knew that he could never fully heal from their deaths, but he was determined not to let his rage consume the planet he had come to call home. After much contemplation, Kevin made the difficult decision to leave the planet and find a new place to start over. He knew that it would be a long and difficult mission, but he was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With his advanced technology and resources, Kevin began to search for a new planet that could sustain life. He scoured the universe for a place that was safe, peaceful, and full of potential. After many years of searching, Kevin finally found a planet that met all of his criteria. It was a lush and fertile world, with a diverse range of flora and fauna. The planet was teeming with life, and Kevin knew that it would be the perfect place to start anew. He landed his ship on the planet's surface and began to explore his new home. He discovered that the planet was inhabited by a peaceful and intelligent species, who welcomed him with open arms. Over time, Kevin became a valued member of the planet's community. He used his knowledge and resources to help the species thrive, and he worked to create a society that was based on mutual respect and cooperation. As the years passed, Kevin knew that he had found a new purpose in life, and he was grateful for the opportunity to make a difference in the world once more. Kevin realized that his journey had taught him a valuable lesson. He had learned that rage and violence were not the answer to the world's problems. Instead, it was through cooperation and understanding that true progress could be made. And with this knowledge, Kevin knew that he could continue to make a positive impact on the universe for years to come. Kevin and the inhabitants of his new planet looked up in horror as the sky filled with spaceships from his old planet. He knew that the people he had left behind were no longer the peaceful and enlightened beings he had once known. Instead, they had become consumed by war, hunger, and a desire for conquest. Kevin knew that he had to act quickly to protect his new home and the beings that he had come to care for. He gathered his allies and began to make preparations for the impending attack. With his advanced technology and strategic mind, Kevin was able to hold off the initial wave of the attack. However, he knew that this was only the beginning. The people of his old planet had an insatiable hunger for power, and they would stop at nothing to achieve their goals. As the days passed, the conflict between the two planets grew more intense. The battles raged on for weeks, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Kevin could feel his resolve beginning to waver. He was tired of fighting, tired of the endless cycle of violence. But then, something miraculous happened. A small group of beings from his old planet approached him, seeking peace. They had seen the destruction that their people had caused and knew that it could not continue. Kevin saw this as an opportunity to end the conflict once and for all. He agreed to negotiate with the group, and after much discussion, they were able to reach a peace agreement. The people of the old planet agreed to leave Kevin and his new home in peace, and in exchange, Kevin promised to help them rebuild their society. He knew that it would be a difficult process, but he was willing to do whatever it took to prevent more bloodshed. And so, the two planets went their separate ways, with a newfound sense of understanding and cooperation. Kevin knew that there was still much work to be done, but he was hopeful for the future. He had learned that even in the darkest of times, there was always a glimmer of hope, a chance for peace and redemption. Kevin was devastated by the request of the inhabitants of his new planet. He had come to love this world and the beings that inhabited it, but he knew that his presence had caused them more harm than good. He had always thought that with his advanced technology and knowledge, he could bring peace and prosperity to any society he encountered. But the events of the past few weeks had shown him that this was not always the case. Kevin realized that despite his best intentions, he could not control the actions of others. War and conflict were a part of the human experience, and he could not change that. With a heavy heart, Kevin gathered his belongings and said his goodbyes to the inhabitants of the planet. They were kind to him, even in their request for him to leave, and he knew that they were doing what they thought was best for their world. As he boarded his ship and took off into the vastness of space, Kevin wondered what his future held. He had spent his entire life traveling the cosmos, searching for a place to call home, but now he felt lost. He realized that maybe he had been searching for the wrong thing all along. Maybe it was not a physical place that he needed, but rather a sense of purpose, a reason for being. With this thought in mind, Kevin set a course for the nearest space station. He knew that there were countless beings in the galaxy who needed his help, and he was determined to use his knowledge and technology to make a difference. As he flew through the void of space, Kevin felt a renewed sense of hope. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. For the first time in 106,080 years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.